said 25 cases out. How many did you produce?
250.
Wow. And this new vintage you're coming, do you know ahead of time, like, do you know, have it like a goal to, like you're going to do Cabernet again? Do you kind of know right now how many cases you want to do?
Yeah, we do. We have an idea. We'll probably be around, actually, our second Napa Valley vineyard, they're both little small vineyards. Our second vineyard will be coming in this year, so we'll probably come close to doubling production.
To what production?
Doubling it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I coming through okay?
Yeah. Well, yeah. You're fine.
You're fine.
Okay. Actually, and one of the things that we wanted to be sure and do is what you're tasting is almost 100% what's called Clone 4. And Clone 4 was the very early clone of Cabernet used in the DV private reserves when Andre Telechev started making them back, I think, in the late 30s, early 40s.
Wow.
And we just love that Clone 4. So we took the same exact budwood that was from the early BV vineyard and planted it initially in Ron's vineyard, and then now we took those cuttings and propagated them in the new vineyard just to make sure we're going to get the same kind of characteristics.
And for those of you, again, for clarification, BV Vineyards is Beaulieu Vineyards. That's just abbreviation for Beaulieu, which most people don't know how to pronounce, but
It's hard. BV is a good thing.
So Ken, how many people you think are still using Clone 4?
Boy, that's a good question. I'm not sure, but there's an awful lot of Clone 7, Clone 8, and then recently, in the last few years, there's this rush for everyone to use the French Clone 337.
Yeah.
And the 337 is a nice clone, but I think it works wonders in France.
Oh, you don't like it in Napa?
The Bordelais like 337 because it ripens a little bit earlier. Well, that's the last thing we need here in California because we don't have a problem ripening.
Yeah, good point. I found that all the 337s I've ever tasted are real fleshy, real big, almost, fruit bombs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
Right. And, again, we've, as I said before to you, is that, we try to emphasize this powerful elegance where we're not just doing the fruit bomb, jam bombs, et cetera.
Yeah, this might be boring information for me to talk about in front of the camera, because last time I spoke with you, Ken, I said the same thing. You and I could sit down and we could just talk wine geek stuff all the time, but the clone from BV that you got, was it originally there in the vineyard site that you purchased, or did you guys buy the clones? Which, again, for our viewers, a clone is just the great varietal. There's actually, you can find many types of Cabernet that are out there, but there's different clones of it, so they can either mutate. You can find. In fact, Ken, why don't you explain to our viewers a little more about cloning?
Sure. Well, there's a difference here. There's a clone, which is a genetically it's a genetic selection, right? So, just interrupt me if I'm going on too long about this, but
You're good.
what it is it has particular characteristics that are then reproduced. So, for instance, with Cabernet, there are probably with Cabernet Sauvignon, not including Cabernet Franc, but there are probably 30 different selections available. And, they're always bringing in newer ones. But now there's something that needs to be sort of deciphered here, is that there is a clone and there is a selection. So you can have, for instance, a clone 4 that is going to have different characteristics than our clone 4 because the selection that we got is from a particular vineyard that gives a particular characteristic. Does that kind of make sense?
It does to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you explained that well.
Okay. One of the things that we like to do too, and just to talk a little bit about how we make this wine. When we, as I've emphasized before, we bring the fruit in, and there better not be one leaf in there. Back in the 70s, I took a wine class. It was a short course at Davis, and they emphasized. They said, if you really want to see what leaves do to wine, take a coffee can full of leaves, put some water in there, and leave it sit for about a week.
Mm.
And that's the kind of flavor that you're putting into wine when you've got leaves in your picking in your grape must. And it's pretty amazing what it does. So in all of our wines, we make sure there are absolutely no leaves. What we do with the cab specifically is it is picked, and because it's picked so late, typically we pick it on Halloween. It tends to have some dry leaves in it, so it takes a little bit more work to clean up. But what we do, after it goes through the crusher, it then goes on a shaker table, which is a table that has little tiny slits in it, and it literally vibrates rather severely. Well, it tends to drop every little stem, any excess seeds that dropped out, and what you get coming into the fermenter is it looks like a mass of blueberries. There is no green to it. And I think that's one of the keys for keeping some of the herbaceousness out of Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah, you guys do a great job at it because all your wines have been very clean. Everything that we've ever reviewed here on the show has been really, really clean, vibrant fruit. So, real quick, I'm sorry to make you go back to this, but and you can just make it a yes or no or a quick
Part two. Real quick.
The vineyards. Did you buy the clones? Were they already on the vineyards, the slopes, or on the floor, or did you guys plant them?
We planted it. A friend of mine who's been in the vineyard management business in Napa Valley for a long time. When he found out we wanted to plant a Cabernet vineyard, he said, "Let me find the selection for you."
And how long ago was that when you first planted?
That was 1990. This particular vineyard is 1999.
Wow.
So it's not, and here's an interesting thing about that, I mean, you guys are probably saying, well, it's not really very old vine stuff, and it's not. But again, what it comes down to is thinning and light crops.